Right now, we're standing outside the control building, but what is being controlled inside this building? Well, based on the smell, I can tell you it's none other than wastewater. The reason we're here today is because of a new surveillance system being developed internationally, which revolves around the testing of human waste. This information collection starts close to home, where we frequently deposit our samples into our sewers. This then meets up with a wide range of other waste as it heads to our wastewater treatment facilities, which are meant to remove the solids within wastewater, at which point the water is sanitized to some degree and released back into nature. In the past, entrepreneurs like Bill Gates salivated over the notion of making drinking water from this kind of excrement. It's water. And intergovernmental organizations like the United Nations have promoted the necessity of its management in years to come. Non-government organizations like the infamous World Economic Forum have called for this wastewater to be considered a valuable resource. And now, after 2 years of COVID hysteria, a new use for this human waste has been capitalized on, and that is testing for the virus. This detection is thanks to the fact that people infected with COVID can shed the virus through their feces. Multiple methods of testing are being developed, such as PCR testing, eRNA testing, and most vividly, a form of genetic sequencing known as metagenomics, a process which pulls out all the genetic information looking for every possible infectious disease present, like a soup where scientists are able to identify all the ingredients, including the spices. Now, before we get to the bottom of why you should be concerned, there are actually some benefits to this new method of testing. It can pick up on positive cases a week before people show symptoms, and wastewater tests can potentially more accurately detect average COVID levels and timing thereof within a given community. In contrast to individual testing, this may also be a more consistent, less intensive method of tracking COVID community levels, and thankfully these anally derived tests aren't nearly as intrusive as the ones in China, at least for now. On the flip side, there are some cons that come along with this new form of COVID testing as well. So far, it may not be able to identify infection at an individual level, nor indicate age, a prime factor when considering severity of infection. And interestingly, influenza could not be tracked using one method of wastewater testing because it sheds mainly through the respiratory tract rather than the gut. But most dauntingly, anyone who contributes to the sewage and is shedding COVID virus will be captured, whether or not they have sought testing or treatment. Meaning they're not asking you for consent before they take samples from your personal excrements. I guess these are cons depending on who you ask, but let's take this a little closer to home. Here in Canada, wastewater has been at the forefront of conversation in years past, such as when the Northern Pulp Mill in Nova Scotia was shut down over environmental integrity in relation to wastewater. Thousands lost their livelihoods because of this, and yet in other provinces like Quebec, we see hundreds of millions of gallons of sewage being dumped into the ocean, with little concern for the consequences. And in June of 2020, the Liberal Party ended all hopes of clear waterways by extending treatment rules for 20 years, allowing provinces like Quebec, the winner of untreated sewage dumping in Canada, to be exempt for the time being. Just months later, it was reported that Ottawa had found a new use for this waste in the form of tracking COVID. And in Yellowknife, when the virus was detected in the city's wastewater, public health cracked down on quarantining community members to request further testing. In Saskatchewan, the Public Health Agency of Canada paired up with the University of Saskatchewan to secure sampling and testing of wastewater across the province, much like Alberta, where wastewater testing for COVID has expanded to most cities in the province. And at a federal level, our government continues to expand their newfound surveillance network. Our politicians are actively investing in this toilet-driven surveillance system, and though they say it's predominantly for COVID-19, it's clear their intentions were greater than just that. As they mention, wastewater surveillance has applications far beyond testing for COVID-19. It is just the start of a surveillance system that can be used to protect the health of Canadians. And we've already seen this technology in past being used to monitor human waste, not only from our sewer systems, but as well internationally, as metagenomics was used to test toilet waste from long-distance flights. As mentioned, this method of testing is already being used here in Canada, which is perhaps why they call it a clear window into the community. A clear window of which, on the other side, we see all of us contributing involuntarily. In the United States, the CDC is already transforming independent local efforts into a robust, sustainable national surveillance system. the same CDC that withheld massive amounts of COVID data to prevent vaccine hesitancy. Further down the rabbit hole still, organizations like the World Economic Forum have suggested that to address outbreaks of infectious diseases, we need surveillance systems that don't rely on the actions of sick people. They've also suggested that wastewater monitoring and social media analysis together could detect community outbreaks that might have otherwise gone undetected. Urban wastewater analysis has also been found to be an effective tool for monitoring drug use, showing that these new surveillance systems certainly offer more than just community disease protection. Government and mainstream media outlets here in Canada have also begun to use water samples as a means of exaggerating COVID fears. The fact remains that this information may have value beyond current comprehension. As seen across the world, the harvesting of information such as human DNA is a rampant issue. And on top of all that, municipal wastewater is considered one of the largest sources of pollution to surface water here in Canada, which begs the question, how long until Trudeau tries taxing you on how much you excrete? Lastly, on a more serious note, is this not private information? I mean, sure, right now they say that they can't measure which individuals they might have been testing. However, they're creating databases with this kind of information all the time. So I imagine it's only a matter of time before they aim to bridge the gap between the sample and the person who created it. And what will happen then? Will this be tied to your vaccine passports as well? Perhaps an officer of the law will come knocking on your door someday, telling you you have an infection even though you feel fine. Tells you you can't leave your home because your poop said that you were a threat to society. Now, this is the kind of power that dictators dream of. And with Justin Trudeau in the mix,
there's a level of admiration I actually have for China. Because their basic dictatorship.
It wouldn't surprise me if brown shirts takes on a new meaning in years to come. But for the time being, my recommendation, get a septic tank. That way you can avoid this situation altogether. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Sidney Fizzard. Right now at rebelnewsstore.com, you can use promo code MOM25 to pick up some mom-related merchandise as we see Mother's Day approaching. And this promo code MOM25 is a BOGO deal, meaning buy one, get one 25% off. So what better way to support your favorite news and your mother at the same time?